Hey guys, welcome back to Clockwork Noodles for another breakdown of Vinland Saga Season 2, episode number 10. We have 2 episodes before the middle of the season, which then means we get perhaps a new OP and ED, which is always the great thing about longer running animes. You just get more songs. The songs for this season have just been absolutely amazing. I am in love with River. River is a fantastic song. I know most of the lyrics too, so it's definitely been in my head. It is helped by the fact that both OP and ED are in English. Will they give us 2 more songs in English for the second half? It makes sense with an anime like this because mainly it is set in Europe. It would be very difficult to find anyone speaking in the older languages, which are technically dead languages by this point. Viking would have been obviously a mix of quite a few different languages. There was a very interesting study recently that if an Englishman was to go back to Shakespeare period, you probably would get by, but you would struggle with the language. A little interesting side note to welcome you to the channel, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. We are approaching the end of the season, which means in about a week's time, you're getting my spring 2023 video. I'm going to go through all of the animes airing this season, what I'm watching, what I'm not watching, what's going to be broken down on the channel. There will be 4 shows on the channel broken down. Of course, Vinland Saga is one of those. About a week after, you're getting my end of season review. Is Vinland Saga going to retain its crown? A lot has happened. There's a lot of shows that are starting to pick up. I think the end of the season has done miracles for certain shows. We're going to have to see how the midway and the end of season review compare. At some point, I should probably start making little charts with the top 3 in the midways and then actually have them to hand to compare to the end of season, just to see if there's been any change. I think that's going to be something maybe we'll do moving forward in the next season. Without further ado, let's get into a very fun episode because we have had a bit of a time skip, and I am very appreciative of the time skips that we are having. I like the way that the anime initially didn't tell you there had been a time skip. You could technically pick up on the visuals. Thorfinn and Einar are now buff because they have been hardworking for 3 whole years. Both have 6-packs, both are pretty much in peak condition because of how much hard work they've done. A lot of time has passed and we have now finally witnessed the final tree coming down, and it's a momentous moment because I really do feel proud of our boys. I never thought it would be a possible task because of how thick and dense that forest was, so I am really just impressed. Odd seeing a whole forest turn into rolling farmlands, mainly how things happen if you're ever in the UK. A lot of our farmlands and hedgerows, they are very old, but a lot of the barriers are still the same from back in the Anglo period. I used to read up on like history facts like this, so it's very nice just to be able to sprinkle them in and share them with you guys. I am just thankful because I think with an anime like this, you do need these little time skips because there would have just been periods of these guys getting up, doing work, going back to sleep. It would have been just rinse and repeat. You didn't really need to see a montage of them doing it, coming in, checking in on how they're doing, and yes, we even get to see Thorfinn smiling. That is amazing for me, and just seeing how they have grown. So proud of them. But we've witnessed these guys coming from trauma land to actually healing and about to become free. What are they going to do next? And this is obviously that big old question, is once we're out of Farmville, what's going to happen? I really would like Thorfinn to go to see his family because his sister and his mother were still alive back in season 1. I don't know if they're alive this season because we haven't checked in on them, but that would be really nice. I would also like Thorfinn to go find Leif Erikson. I really want him to meet up with him because Leif Erikson was searching for him 3 years ago. What has happened since? Has he just given up? Does he believe that Thorfinn is dead? Is he aware that he's working as a slave? It's just many questions that I'd like to get the answer to. I'd also like to see if these two are gonna stay together. I hope so, and I feel like they are good for each other, so it'd be nice to keep them together. But of course, as Einar states, there's nothing to really go back to, and at the moment, if I leave, Arnhide's never really going to be free. That is the downside to history in general. As much as we're looking at history and we're seeing a good thing with 2 men getting their freedom, women just didn't. It's not going to be some time till women really get any kind of rights, votes in general, and that happens in the 19th century for most countries. The past really is just the worst. Shows like this are, I guess, trying to show you a little bit of hope. Some people got their freedom, but just not all. Thorfinn's very progressive. When Thorfinn says that he hopes one day he can end slavery, wars, that is something that sadly Thorfinn isn't really going to be realised. Even up until the modern day period, we do still have modern day slavery going on. It is the dream. It would be an amazing place if the world really could just stop. I don't know if it's going to be a thing that even I'm going to see in my lifetime. It would be great, but it's a nice dream to show you Thorfinn the pacifist. We were chatting in the comments and a lot of people saying that this is really just a show to show you what it means to be a pacifist in a time where it would have been very difficult. When death is all around you, there's a lot of slavery and a lot of people die. These are very dark periods. The Vikings are always known as quite dark and gritty and a very bad time to be around. Generally, history is just the worst. I think that really is the bottom line when it comes to stuff like this. Freedom is coming even quicker. Catil has decided to speed things up. Maybe he feels guilty. Maybe he just probably feels guilty for the wreck that they got into and all the bullying that was probably going on. And again, he is a grey character who perhaps does the most good. But yes, he is still a slave owner, and Arnheid is technically never going to get her freedoms. A very difficult character to break down, but he is one of the better characters in the show. There's a lot of bad people, and sadly, even Canute, as much as I love my boy, you can see this time that even he has got a lot of blood in his hands. Catil states that he's off to go and see Harold, where this is what I even stated here. I think this is a link to Canute. I couldn't quite remember the actual relationship between Harold and Canute. I knew there was a link, so maybe I thought they were cousins or something, but I didn't realise they were actually brothers. Nice little nod to Olmar, who is sporting a micro-tash. I like this because he's not technically growing a beard. He's just got the next best thing. It's a little moustache going on, and it's a really small moustache at that. I did think Olmar was going to become a big character, but for some reason he hasn't. But it does seem as well he hasn't gone to war within those 3 years. But we don't know where the old master is, which makes me concerned that he's died. We know he's with Snake. If he has passed away, at least Snake is by his side. The prospect of staying on the farm is floated around. That could technically be a possible ending where you worked on the farm, you've seen it through, you could technically live there and make it your home. But again, it's bittersweet where you were a slave and you had no rights there because you were bought. So that could be technically a very bittersweet thing to do. But again, it could be a possible option for them to consider. It would allow Einar to be close to Arnheid, but then again, that could be very painful for him, having to watch day after day as she is a slave and he is free. Now, Daddy Canute is back, and he's even more hairy and even more brooding and still the king. We are told that he is indeed Harold's brother. I just forgot the exact relationship between the two. I knew there was a link. I didn't know if it was cousins or something. Once upon a time, I was a kid. They had all of the monarchs on the ruler. It gets to a certain point when they're all linked and all the family lines flow into one another. But if you start digging further and further back, it gets very confusing. People are king for like 3 days or a year or something. 19 years. There we go. Canute's reign is 19 years, which is still really, really good. This is actually pretty good for that period of time. Even though 19 to us doesn't sound very long, it's still longer than a lot of them. I never heard that Canute poisoned Harold, so that's something I'm not quite 100% with. Let's talk about baby Canute, because oh my goodness, he is so cute. He is absolutely adorable, and I'm actually quite sad to see that Canute turned into Path of Bloodshed, becomes brooding, quite dark character, because obviously he's killing off his own family. He's now haunted by Svein. He's very similar to Thorfinn in a sense, but unlike Thorfinn, who runs from his demons, Canute openly just becomes friends with his demons, and I admire that. I guess there's two ways of dealing with darkness. If you're going to be someone creating a lot of darkness, well, you may as well sit in dark and join them. Canute becomes king of both Denmark, England, which is something I did technically know. He ends up getting both, but this is where we are hinted at that he has poisoned Harold. I don't know. I'd actually have to look. Maybe I'll go and look, and then I'll come back to you guys next week and see actually what happened. Maybe somebody will be nice and just like give me some information in the comments below. But I will have a little look anyway, because I'm curious to see if that is a confirmed fact or whether it's a rumor. When we spoke about the Rose King a few seasons ago, did Richard kill certain people? And again, it's all rumours. A lot of it is down to propaganda from the Tudor period at that time. I don't think the Tudors are spreading too many rumours in this scenario. But it is interesting to see how formal Canute is with the rest of his family. He doesn't allow his sister to call him brother or anything. He addresses another king respectfully, but double-edged sword, because he technically is the reason why that king is now on his way out, which is so sad, because as a kid you see how much Harold actually loves his brother. He doesn't want him wrapped into cotton wool, and he wants him to grow up strong. Almost a little bit annoyed when we see them fawning over Canute falling over and getting back up again. I think Harold doesn't want to see him coddled as much. He wanted to see him grow properly and maybe have those bandages ripped off early so he could grow up strong. Canute does get a deathbed warning from King Svein, who is now, I think, going to be a permanent member of his head. He is now going to be the king of Denmark and England. As much as he might really want this for his utopia, it's also a very unhappy fate, because now he's got 2 countries to look after, 2 lots of wars. He's got double the amount of borders now to protect from incoming armies. We all know what happens in 1066, don't we? It's no longer going to be under their rule. We're going to have the Normans coming in. So there's always going to be somebody in the wings waiting to take that place. So Canute now has a lot on his mind. Can't quite remember what happened in 1035 that ends up cutting his reign short. Maybe he dies, I'm not quite sure. The good thing about things like these type of shows, they get you interested in history and then you go and have a little read about it. And I definitely am more interested in Canute now, so I might actually have to go and read. But generally, Canute was remembered as a good king. People always say that he's a good king. He was a lot less brutal and he ended a lot of different practices that were quite seen as bad and negative. I absolutely loved the lighting in the crown sequence though. I really enjoy this because it's the blue on his face, which is quite cold. Canute looking at the crown and him just trying to relax but also not able to relax because he's now been haunted by the ghosts of Svein, which again is a really cool sequence. I love the fact it also gives him someone to talk to. Sure, he's technically talking to himself, going a bit doolally. Also a great way of getting the lowdown on what's going on in his head. What is he planning to do? Why did he need to get rid of his brother? He had to get rid of his brother because he needed one king. He was going to be easier for just have one. Even though Harold really did seem friendly towards him, I guess got to the point where he just didn't want to take any chances. We see that he refuses to drink because, again, he's scared that somebody's going to poison him right back. So I guess he becomes a little bit more paranoid and cautious, very, very cautious. I don't know if Canute ever marries. I don't think he's really got the time to get close to people when he seems to be on a bit of a mission. I do love the way that he is just very open with his demons. This is a very different approach from what we've seen with Thorfinn, who just ran away from them, and then eventually, when he did turn around and face them, he was able to start moving forward. Canute, on the other hand, is openly just like embraced them and gone, hey, I'm here, let's be friends. I might have killed you, but now we're friends. It's great. Technically, I didn't kill you. It was technically Asgard removed his head. I remember that sequence. It was such a brutally dark sequence, but it was also a very beautiful moment for Asgard. But it did also symbolize the end of Asgard. It's a very nice ending in a sense because Canute ends up at home in the dark, contrasting to see the dark he's now surrounded in, whilst his childhood was very bright. The first thing I noticed about those flashback sequences was how bright they were. They were very overexposed. Whether that's more him looking back on the past as a lot brighter than he is now, maybe he's over-sweetening these memories perhaps, but it did seem like both brothers did care for each other, but sadly, Canute had to go down a very dark path because he wants a utopia and he just doesn't see it possible with having his brother floating around, which is really sad as well. It's a possibility if he did have young kids, well, Canute might have even darkened his hands even further to just get rid of that. If you were interested in that kind of bumping off, we've already gone through that on Rose King. It got to a point where I just dropped it one episode before the end because there was just too much darkness, and I guess it got to a point when I was just like, I'm just too miserable to do this series. That is weird coming from somebody who'd fully seen through To Your Eternity. I actually think there's more brightness in To Your Eternity than there is when it comes to The Rose King. The Requiem of the Rose King was just rough. That was today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As you can see, we're back on schedule now, so we have 2 more episodes before the break. Normally there's like a week break or something before we get into the next season. Can't wait, guys. I hope you guys are looking after yourselves and you've had a great weekend. I will see you guys again soon. Bye bye, guys.